Hello, this video is for Odoo 19 consolidation with multi-company, multi-currency. So I wanted to explain the background. I choose two company. So let's say in a company of Canada, I would go into my accounting app, install the localization, which is in Canada here. On top of that, I also go to my currency and then set for US dollars, March 1st, 2026 at 1.1 conversion, which is per US dollars, per unit of US dollars, I get 1.1 Canadian dollars. And by enter 1.1 here, Odoo calculate 0.9, 1.2 for March 2nd. That rate is exactly the same, but flipped in US company. So let me select US company and then uncheck the Canada. So in US company, my Canadian dollars on March 1st is unit per US dollars is 1.1, 1.2. So then there's opposite here. So it means that both company are setting up the correct currency in flipped. Next, in my US company, I have a very simple scenario. March 1st, I sell 100 US dollars. March 2nd, 200 US dollars. So in US company, my balance sheet for account receivable, there's no conversion. So March 1st, $100. March 2nd, it's a balance sheet, so it's including $100 and $200, $300. And obviously, my profit and loss is $300. In this case, my balance sheet are balanced. Total assets 300, liability plus equity 300, no problem. Same thing for Canada. Canada, March 1st have 300 Canadian dollars, and sorry, 100 Canadian dollars on March 1st, and then March 2nd, 200 Canadian dollars. As you can see, the dollar sign becomes at the back. So it shows a Canadian dollars. Now, in the balance sheet, again, I'm only selecting Canada. It is calculating correctly and 300, 300 balance. Here's the catch. Let's go back to March 1st. And let's look at both US company and Canadian company. Now, what does it mean? I'm adding a US company transaction to reflect in my Canadian dollars, including my Canadian dollars, Canadian companies transaction. So here on my balance sheet on March 1st, I see two different AR accounts because they're two different company. I did not map a receivable account. So there are two account display. And one, as you can see, I highlighted in Canada. So there is $100 for Canadian dollars, 110, which is 1.1 rate, converting a US dollars to Canadian dollars. So for my total asset is 210. However, now you can see my liability is no longer the same because then I'm using a different rate. The thing is, in my balance sheet, I'm only looking at date. So I'm always kind of looking at an averaging, or my equity is like an averaging. So averaging or historical. If you go back and look at this document, you will see that equity use historical, P&L use average, balance sheet, which is an AR, receivable use closing rate. Closing rate means that on the date of March 1st, I have 1.1 rate. So that's why $100 US converted to 110. But why 217? Because if you click into it, it's showing you a period from January 1st to March 1st. In this company, because it's quite empty, I can actually change to another report. It's quite empty. So between January 1st until end of February, all the rate for Canadian and US dollars exchange for this company, Canada company, it's one conversion because I literally add no currency rate or imported. That's why it's so low that is almost one, like the conversion is almost 1 rather than 1.1. So if I open this, you will see 100 and 100.17 because you're looking at the range of a whole 2 months. If you then P&L, you can choose the starting date, which is from March 1st to March 1st. That way, you're seeing 110 because P&L is actually using an average rate. But March 1st is just one transaction, so it's hard to compare. Now let's take a look at March 1st to March 2nd. For March 1st and March 2nd, in Canadian company, I have 100 and 200 Canadian dollars adding up for 300. My P&L, my US, on the other hand, it's 100 US dollars and then 200 US dollars, ending for 345, because I'm using average rate between 1.1 exchange rate and 1.2. So 1.1 plus 1.2 divided by 2. Use that rate for 300 US dollars, converted to Canadian dollars is this. So 645. If you go back to the balance sheet and change the date to March 2nd, again, we are only based in Canada right now, adding the US company's transaction in. You can see that this now becomes AR for 360. Why? Again, because this is a balance sheet using account receivable, using a closing rate. What is a closing rate as of March 2nd? I disregard the 1.1 for March 1st. I'm only looking at March 2nd. March 2nd, there's total 300 US dollars at the rate of 1.2. So it converted to 360. On the other hand, my current year earning, it will always pull, this is not the right report. It will pull, because of the balance sheet nature of it, it pulls these range from the fiscal year. So then it becomes 301. Yeah. Long story short, if you have a consolidated company balance sheet, it won't balance. You will have to manually add the CTA, cumulative transaction or translation adjustment in the equity sections. As you can see, it doesn't balance. It's not balancing for Canada company adding the US dollars or the other way around. Now, if you're highlighting US and for Canada and pulling Canada result, you will see the same idea. Okay. I hope these explains and then help you understand the documents. And feel free to comment below if you have any feedback. Thank you.